Coming up next on the Giants Chronicles podcast, we're breaking down who could be possible Giants in round one of the NFL draft. What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Giants Chronicles podcast. I'm your host, Gabe, and today we are breaking down some future Giants. Well, we'll see on Thursday. Thursday is the NFL draft, and today we're going over some possible prospects that we could see the Giants draft at pick 25 in the first round. So, guys, I just announced on my Instagram we are going to be doing a live stream here on the Giants Chronicles podcast of a live reaction to the NFL draft on Thursday, of course, starting at 8 o'clock when the draft starts. I'd love to have you guys come in, join, talk about your teams, your team's picks, be here live to see your reaction. So, of course, it's a fun night to be an NFL fan just to see the future of your team. And I hope everyone can make it for that live event we'll be having here on the Giants Chronicles podcast. So let's get into some players that I could see the Giants possibly drafting at 25. I have, scouting reports on all of these guys. And we're going to start with a guard out of Florida, O'Cyrus Torrence, 6'5", 330 pounds. He allowed 0 sacks in his college career, a stat that really comes up when you talk about O'Cyrus Torrence. He's projected to be a late first round, early second round pick. Obviously, Torrence is coming off of a dominant year in Florida, transferring from the University of Louisiana. He transferred from a smaller conference in the Sun Belt Conference to the SEC, so he kind of proved, he can compete against stronger combination. Obviously, the Sun Belt Conference isn't as a dominant conference as the SEC or well known. So that was obviously a big point of emphasis for O'Cyrus Torrence. So he had a dominant size that helps him, just being a shutdown guard, allowing 0 sacks. He had a great first step on the snap of the ball. He finishes all his blocks through the whistle. And he's a running back's best friend. When I really watch his tape, he stands out to me because he makes that hole for the running back to run through. That's kind of why I labeled him a running back's best friend. So obviously he brings someone you can build your offensive line around, someone who will definitely establish your offensive line, even though it's in the interior, not tackle. So obviously, O'Cyrus Torrence, he was just, someone who stood out right away. He was at the Senior Bowl. That's where I first, learned about O'Cyrus Torrence. And then obviously I went into him a little more and, found a little information. So obviously he would be a solid pick at pick 25. Do I think he'll be the pick? But there's a possible chance. I think he'll definitely be on the board, and he would definitely be a good pick by Shane and company just to establish this O-line a little more. We have 2 tackles. We just need a guard and a center, in my opinion, to just really solidify it. Will that happen? I do not know. It seemed like in Shane's presser that he wasn't really concerned about the O-line, but then again, it is smokescreen season, as I call it. GMs are saying stuff to kind of put them in favor to who they want to draft at 25. So let's get into another offensive lineman. This guy is Steve Avila out of TCU, 6'4", 332 pounds, and allowed 4 sacks over his college career. But Steve Avila coming in a draft has experience playing in college at offensive tackle, center, guard. I mean, he saw action throughout his college career, starting in 2019 as a freshman. He saw 2 games, played 21 snaps. I believe he was a redshirted freshman as well. In his sophomore season, he saw a lot more action. I mean, he played 9 games, 510 snaps. And that's when he really started playing center majority. But he also played some at right tackle. So, Steve Avila, he comes with a lot of flexibility, which is what I really enjoy about him. You saw the Giants drafted Josh Azudu last year, who also came with a lot of flexibility in where you can align him on the guard. And Steve Avila kind of reminds me of Josh Azudu in that way. In his 2021-2022 seasons, Avila became a dominant, center guard in the Pac-12. I mean, he was just well known. earning All-American honors both years. So he's a runner in the run game, and once he puts his hands on a defensive tackle, I mean, he immediately uses his weight to control that defensive tackle. He does not, he does not give up a lot of ground. So he's just dominant. I feel his strength is against against power rushers. He does very well stopping pass rushers' ability to get in the backfield. He takes away the rushers' momentum. But sometimes with speed rushers that use their speed, cause Avila some problems and struggles to block laterally. But again, that's not a huge concern of mine. Obviously, I think Avila will end up playing center. I think that's just where he's been most dominant throughout his college career and where he'll fit best in the NFL. I mean, time will tell. I could see the Giants drafting him. He's projected to be like a second, third round pick, so a day 2 pick. Maybe we don't know if maybe Shane, was a smokescreen. They didn't want to upgrade this O-line, but we'll see, of course, when it comes to draft night. But Avila could be a very solid option on the board at a pick 57 or pick, I believe it's like 80 something. So obviously he's someone to watch out for, as I believe this O-line does need upgraded, and many people, beat reporters, etc., believe it needs upgrade. Now we're gonna move on to a fan favorite already by a lot of NFL fans, and that's John Michael Schmitz out of Minnesota. Another center, 6'4", 320 pounds. He also allowed 0 sacks throughout his college career. I mean, he's a dominant nose down center. He's gonna be a very solid starting center in the NFL. He'll establish himself quickly. He's coming out of Minnesota. He's smart, big body center. He was dominant in the run game at Minnesota. He will create gaps up the center for a running back. I mean, he has a good base for blocking. He doesn't struggle in pass blocking. He's not he's not as good as his strength is definitely run blocking overall, but he's not bad in the pass blocking game either. So, that's also something. He needs to work on his pad level a little. He also is going to be an older type of rookie. He's 24. I believe will be 25 when the season starts. So again, that may be another concern. However, for a center position, I'm not really as concerned about it as like maybe a quarterback position. I would be concerned. So not really too concerned about that. But obviously, he's going to bring an elite option to the center position for a team high in the second round. If he falls to the Giants at 57, I don't think Shane will struggle to pick him at all. Bobby Johnson has been really involved in his workouts, pro day. I believe they had him in for a top 30 visit. I can check on that right now, but obviously I do think they've had a lot of interest in John Michael Schmitz throughout the process. I definitely would not be surprised if they end up drafting him at pick 57. If he's there, though, I think he'll be a very high second round pick, possibly by the Jets. I mean, they need a center. Haven't really addressed the center position throughout the offseason so far. So I think it's obvious that they're very interested in John Michael Schmitz, and they do have two second round picks to use on possibly a John Michael Schmitz. But obviously the Giants need a dominant center, in my opinion, no matter what Shane says that we have been Bredesen, Jack Anderson. I mean, none of those guys have proved they are starting centers. I think, Ben Bredesen played one game at starting center against Philly in that last regular season game, but I didn't see a lot from him. I have to go back and watch that game. I think he was decent. I just don't think he was someone that was really that great in my opinion. But obviously I'm not an NFL GM, so I'm not going to sit here and say they can't play center, but from what they've done throughout their career, I just don't know if that's our best options on the O-line. But John Michael Schmitz could come in and really be what I call the center I call quarterback of the offensive line. Really, he makes the calls on the O-line, so could definitely see John Michael Schmitz being a New York Giant. I think he'd fit in just well on the offensive line. The only problem I have with John Michael Schmitz coming to New York is I don't know if he really fits our O-line scheme. I mean, we have a zone blocking scheme. He's more of a gap kind of blocking scheme, so that's the one thing that I would say about him. Maybe where Joe Tippmann is a better option for the New York Giants, who's also a dominant center in this year's draft. So there's a lot of center options. There's so many to go over, but those are obviously three of the top center, guard, interior O-line options. So obviously those are some of the ones I wanted to highlight. Now we're going to get into kind of the cornerbacks. Obviously this year's draft, the cornerbacks are really there's a lot of them. There's a lot of options in this year's draft, cornerback wise and DB wise. And I think honestly, when we get to pick 25, I think that's going to be the best player on the board. I think a cornerback will be the best player on the board when it comes to draft night. And I think the Giants are well aware and well prepared for that. So I think I want to start with the cornerback in Deonte Banks, 6'1", 200 pounds. 27 passes deflected, 1 interception. I mean, he's coming off of a lockdown quarterback one season. I mean, he was just dominant at Maryland this past year. You could tell, his stock was gonna rise. He's a press man corner, very athletic. He can keep up with the pace of a wide receiver one in the NFL. Strong body, good arm length. And again, he'll be a very good scheme fit for the New York Giants. I mean, Wink runs a similar defense to the Maryland defense in the way that it's a press man defense. So obviously he would fit right in the scheme. And I think he would be a very good pick for the New York Giants at pick 25. Now, is he there is the question. You have teams like Minnesota before you that need a corner. So there's a lot of obviously there's a lot of other teams before you that might be taking that position. So we'll see. Obviously I think there's a very good chance he is there at 25. And I think the Giants like him. They had in for a top 30 visit. I think Wink would really this would provide a cornerback of the future. We have Adoree Jackson, but he's only under contract for this year. And, he comes with a lot of injury concerns and stuff like that, where Deonte Banks could come in and kind of learn from Adoree for a year and then behind Adoree as a cornerback 2 and then transform to that cornerback 1 the following year. And then you have, probably by a lot of people's opinion, one of the best cornerbacks, probably, in my opinion, maybe the best, and that is Joey Porter Jr. out of Penn State. 6'2", 192 pounds, and 21 tackles this past year at Penn State. I mean, he was just shut down. I mean, there was hardly any time you could find a wide receiver Joey Porter Jr. was covering in a Penn State game wide open. It was just very obvious that Joey Porter was going to be a high draft pick this year's draft. And I think if he's there for the Giants, they won't struggle to run up and pick him. Do I think he will be there? I don't know. But, Joey Porter established himself as a top corner in this year's draft, coming off one of the most dominant seasons, one of his most dominant seasons at Penn State. I mean, he might be the best corner to ever play at Penn State. It's hard to think of one before him. He was nearly, locked down. I mean, he just... there's no better term to define him other than lockdown this past year for Penn State. It's going to be hard for Penn State to find a corner to replace or be like a Joey Porter Jr. this upcoming season, because he really did just take away the wide receiver 1 on the other team. I mean, it was just, crazy how much he impacted the game, especially on a Manny Diaz, who also runs a press man scheme. Now, the corners I'm highlighting are press man, and you might be wondering, oh, why are you doing that? Well, that's because Wink runs a very, very tight press man defense, and you need players who can play press man. Now, does Wink call zone sometimes? I mean, yes, but most of the time, Wink is calling those press man scheme coverage defenses, and you need to have corners who can handle these being on an island and not getting much support from a safety over top. And Joey Porter Jr. proved he could do that at Penn State. I mean, Penn State was very much send the blitz, have your corners be, your cornerstones, and Joey Porter was a big key on why Manny Diaz could do that this past year. So definitely someone that will be a high draft pick. Now, does he fall the Giants at 25? Time will tell. Obviously, we had the draft in just under 5 days now, 4 days when you guys will be seeing this. And of course, he had a top 30 visit with the Giants. So obviously the Giants are interested. I wouldn't be surprised if he's the pick there at 25. I mean, if he's on the board, I will be pounding my hand on on my desk here for us to draft him. He's a very shutdown corner. And even if an Addison is on the board, I still think I might go Joey Porter Jr. over him. Joey Porter is a top quarterback in this year's draft. And if you get him at pick 25, that is a solid pick. I also wouldn't rule the Giants possibly trading up to get a top tier corner like a Joey Porter Jr., a top tier wide receiver. In the 20s, there's a lot of teams like the Giants that are needy for a cornerback and a wide receiver. And a team that comes up is, the Baltimore Ravens, who are at pick, I think, 23, I believe. And that's 2 picks before the New York Giants. They need a wide receiver, and they could possibly draft a corner. So obviously, I wouldn't rule out as possibly trading up. And Shane said he would be interested in doing that. So I wouldn't be surprised if we did trade up for that type of player. He is a difference maker, especially in a Wink Martindale defense. You really need to have very solid corners to play the scheme that Wink wants to play. And now we come to one of my favorite players in this draft. I mean, when I watched this player, he just stood out to me. Now, it's not the sexiest thing to do at pick 25, and I completely understand that. However, Brian Branch, safety out of Alabama, do-it-all player, height 6 feet, 193 pounds, 2 interceptions, 2 passes, deflected, 52 tackles. I mean, he was a do-it-all player at Alabama. He was one of their cornerstones of their defense. I mean, you had him just all over the field. He played the nickel, he played the safety, he played the box. I mean, he was a contributor in the Bama defense all 3 years, starting in his freshman year. He started his sophomore and his junior year. I mean, they clearly, Nick Saban liked him there, and they wanted to use him a lot. He would bring, in my opinion, a better than a Julian Love type prospect to the Giants defense. He can replace that Julian Love role of the in the box nickel coverage safety that you have. Very fast downfield rusher. I mean, he can pass rush the quarterback. He can, do a bunch of things to, intimidate a defense that, you need to plan for him. And, if Brian Branch is there at 25, I wouldn't be surprised if the Giants picked him. He's one of the players I think is more likely to be there at 25. And I think the Giants could possibly pick him. They had him for a top 30 visit. I think he would really be a fun player to see in a Wink Martindale defense. Just see him rushing the passer and stuff like that. I think it would be, very something the Giants fans would like. Yes, I know we have an Xavier McKinney who plays more of that deep safety role. Now Branch can do that. Branch can play that deep safety role. However, I think he's more suited to play the Julian Love role of an in the box and nickel safety. So I'd be very interested to see what the Giants would do with Brian Branch. He obviously, it's rumored that the Giants do like him, so it'll be interested to see how much they like him when it comes to pick 25 and they're on the clock on Thursday. Now I have a bit of an interesting player, that maybe you haven't heard a lot about, connected to the Giants throughout this pre-draft process, but it's worth noting Kalijah Cansey out of Pitt, defensive tackle, 6 foot, 275 pounds, 7 sacks this past year, 18 tackles. I mean, he's a spark plug in the interior of your defensive line. He plays with incredible urgency, athleticism. He fires into the neutral zone. He's quickness. He's intent. He's extremely physical, extremely tough. Shades of Aaron Donald when he was playing at Pitt. Now, obviously, that connection comes because of the fact that Aaron Donald play at Pitt. He plays at Pitt, but he has the athleticism of an Aaron Donald type. He's willing to exchange powers with blockers, that have a height or a weight advantage over him. He does not. He will take very well advantage of his quickness, his built-in leverage to win on first contact. He shoots gaps extremely well and fast. He's extremely reliable in the run game. He's very, very, very good defensive tackle. I mean, he could be, Leo's future replacement. I mean, some people don't realize it, but we only have Leo under contract for another year, and it doesn't seem like the Giants have done anything to, extend him or even, renegotiate his contract. So, part of the NFL draft is planning for the future. And what's the future without Leonard Williams on the defensive line? I think it could very well be a Kalijah Cansey possibly, who would come in after this year, obviously be a rotational piece this year, and then replace a Leonard Williams after 1 year in the Wink Martindale defense, kind of like a Dexter Lawrence going in for a Dalvin Tomlinson. So obviously, that would be a very intriguing pick. I know a lot of people may be against that pick, not like it, but I will be very happy with that pick. I mean, Kalijah Kancey, just a dominant defense tackle. And then I have kind of an underrated prospect. I think this whole prospect this whole process hasn't been talked about enough, in my opinion, and that's Byron Brees. I hope I pronounced that right. Out of Clemson, defensive interior defense lineman, and honestly, a do-it-all defensive lineman. 6'5", 300 pounds, 3.5 sacks, 9 tackles this past year. Brees has been an outstanding player at Clemson. I could just see him, taking New York by fire. I mean, he would, instantly be an impact in the New York Giants defense. And honestly, I think he looks like a Wink Martindale player when you just watch him. He definitely would be someone Wink would enjoy, someone that would fit in Wink's scheme very well. However, I just don't know what the value will match up at 25 for the Giants. But his physical skill is just so obvious when you view his, full sample size of film, particularly when he was playing at full strength as a freshman early in 2021. He won, shallow twist, which allow him to open his strides as he gets into a gap. Offers a clear look at where he's, so highly regarded as a high recruit coming out of high school. He's good penetration. He's very twitchy, can rip through lateral contact. I mean, he's just, you can align him anywhere on the defensive line. He will be an impact player for you. He draws a crowd on the defensive line. I mean, imagine you have Dexter Lawrence, EJ Laurie, Kayvon Thibodeau already drawing a lot of attention from offensive lines. Imagine if you add in a Byron Brees to the defensive line. I mean, that would obviously be a dominant addition for the Giants there. Brees is also accustomed to, using his, his weight and his height and his body to his advantage. I mean, he's a big, strong, physical defensive lineman. And I mean, O-lines would have to prepare for him, Dexter Lawrence. And obviously, Shane has made an emphasis through the pre-draft process of improving that defensive line. Maybe not the starting defensive line, but the depth on that defensive line. Byron Brees could come in, be a very good rotational piece for this defensive line. I think would fit right in Wink Martindale's system. And just some prospects. I know I had a separate wide receiver video. That's, if you guys were wondering, that's why I haven't talked about a lot of the wide receivers in this year's draft, or any wide receivers in this year's draft, because of the fact that I do have a separate video out on the wide receivers, just because obviously the New York Giants are very interested in that, as they had almost all of the prospects, top wide receiver prospects, and even second and third round prospects in for visits. But I just want to talk about Jonathan Mingo out of Ole Miss real quick. He is someone that's came up on my radar late in the process. I didn't hear a lot about him earlier in the process, but I mean, when you turn on the tape out of Ole Miss, he was just dominant. You hear a lot about Rashee Rice out of Ole Miss. Jonathan Mingo needs more spotlight. I mean, he was their deep threat, in my opinion, and he was just, all over the field at Ole Miss. So if he's there in the second round, 57, I wouldn't rule out the Giants taking him. He could be a wide receiver one. I saw something about his comparison being Hakeem Nicks. So obviously Giants royalty right there. So I would not rule out taking someone like him in the second or third round. Also, Marvin Mims. I didn't give Marvin Mims a lot of time in that wide receiver video. Marvin Mims was dominant at Oklahoma as well. I mean, he was their wide receiver one. He provided them with a, shutdown his target. I mean, he would put quarterbacks in the dust, and he would be a really good addition to this offense, fitting in this scheme very well. So those are just a couple wide receivers I wanted to go over real quick with you guys. Obviously, this is just a video to give you guys a better idea of round one prospects. I include some round 2 and 3 prospects in here, but just so you guys know, this is a draft week, so obviously I have a lot of daily content out. Tomorrow, this is Tuesday, or Monday's video, Tuesday's video. I'm hoping to possibly get a special guest on, but if I don't, Tuesday's video will be some late round prospects we'll talk about here on the Giants Chronicles podcast, and of when our Wednesday video, the day before the draft, obviously will be my final mock draft for the New York Football Giants, and we'll do that not live, but we'll do that on here on the Giants Chronicles podcast. So I hope you enjoyed this video, guys. I appreciate you all you watching. Let me know what your thoughts on the background. I know it's a little like glitchy. But what are your thoughts on it? Let me know in the comments. If you guys want me to go back to just the camera, I will. But you know, I know it's a little glitchy, but we'll work on it, of course, to get a little better. But with that, guys, please like this video, share it with your friends, and be there on Thursday. Share this with your friends as well. That we're having a live stream here on the Giants Chronicles podcast. So we will be live streaming the draft. I'm hoping to get some Carolina fans on for pick 1, the first pick overall, obviously to kick off the NFL draft. And obviously I want you guys to be in the comments, commenting your thoughts on the NFL draft. And I'll also send out the link. I'm hoping this is going to be more of a watch party than just me sitting here talking, reacting to every pick. So hopefully you guys will join in. Let me know if you're coming. DM me. Comment on this video. I'm going to be there or something like that. Just give me an idea of who's going to all be there. I'm going to make sure I can be able to send out the link. I know we've have had problems with that in the past. I'm getting in contact with YouTube about possibly fixing that because that has been a problem in the past. But obviously, we're going to have a lot of fun on Thursday. It is the night of the draft, the night NFL fans look forward to. Every April, it's kind of the last big thing before training camp in July. You obviously you have rookie mini camp and you introduce your rookies and all that in press conferences. So we'll have coverage of that here, of course, on the Giants Chronicles podcast. But I appreciate you all for listening to the Giants Chronicles podcast. And with that, guys, please like, share, and subscribe if you're new. And as always, let's go Big Blue.